Hey everybody, this is Ed Andrade with the Drill Pad. I know we're looking forward to the second part, so let's fall in, let's get this thing going. Before we get to Matt, let's discuss a couple things. That there is a world beyond drill, right? That drill isn't solely going to be everybody's life. There comes a point, even me, that you leave it behind in a sense. Matt was fortunate enough to be able to bring it back and build his company around it. I'm fortunate enough to be able to have a son that was interested in it, continue it, that brought me back in, and ultimately brought me back here to you all that's listening. There's more to life beyond the rifle. You'll also learn that drill is more than just high speed, high toss, and what's the next octuple the person can throw in the air. It's more than that. It's an art. And being able to build your craft based on your art should speak volumes. And you should be proud of the masterpiece that you make. It's important that we get back into this style where you challenge yourself competitively and you move in a direction where it's not just you vomit onto the drill pad and you're like, oh, I did a quintuple this and octuple that and oh, that looks good. No, we ought to get back to the way, and that's sometimes beyond the trophy. Now, don't get me wrong. Are the trophies great? Of course. Who doesn't want to win? Who doesn't want to be able to go up and walk the stage and be able to accept that trophy, first place, or whatever place you got? But the culture of what you bring, the culture of your team, and the champions that you build around it should be what's most important. Building a team environment that allows everybody to be successful, that allows everybody to be happy, being supportive, being loving towards each other, build from the ground up. You can't just expect everybody to hop on board and immediately start doing it all or going into something that they have no idea what this world's about. Show them, teach them. Drill is more than just team. It's a family, it's a community, it's a camaraderie. It's the relationships you build through drill that's important. It's these long-term lessons that you learn that carry over into your adulthood. Like I mentioned, there are many that I've learned over the years from when I was in high school, from my ROTC instructors, from my senior classmen that I still carry with me to this day. And I learned from my coaches back then, what's the difference between a winner and a champion? That's all from high school, from, oh my God, almost 20 some years ago. Jesus, I can't believe it's been that long. We're going to go into the second half. And if there's one thing I want you all to understand and I want you all to learn, is I want you to really pay attention to what Matt says throughout this, because I specifically cut this last half out because I thought everything that Matt had mentioned this last half was the most important. So eyes up, pay attention. Everybody, I give you Matt Wendling's second half of his legendary tale.
And he's had some rough practices. And from practices for yourself, has there ever been a hard practice? And I don't mean like something that's like, oh man, like I remember I was outside for like 6-7 hours, because I think most dedicated drillers have done that. But has there ever been one that just sticks out to you, whether it was your hardest practice or a season that they've been through where you said, man, like this is something I'll never forget?
Yeah, that's such a great question. For me personally, we'll talk about my time as a performer first. I think I had a really rough time in college, in undergrad. I think it's a hard time. I think coming out of high school and figuring out your place in the world and renegotiating the relationships in your life and learning to be an adult and figure your own crap out. I think those years can be very challenging. And for me, I had a strong team-oriented background, not just in drill team coming in high school, but also in the music department and the marching band. And so I had a lot of community there. I think I struggled in college quite a bit to renegotiate some of those things in my life. And drill became one of those things that was comforting. I don't know that I have a singular practice that stands out to me as being, super grueling or that was just really hard on me, because one of the things that I learned through drill was to love the process more than the outcome. And so, I really loved, to be honest, even still to this day, coaching and training, so much of the activity happens, in the practice environment and not really in the performance environment. But I think that those couple of years, that season of my life, I look back on it and say, wow, I was dealing with depression and I was dealing with a lot of personal stuff. And I think compounding that by using drill as almost like a therapy, sometimes in lieu of therapy, I look back at those times and think, wow, that was a very difficult time for me as a practitioner of drill. And though it didn't seem like it, I think that those were some of the most challenging times for me personally in my life, if that makes sense. I know that's not quite
Yeah, no,
a
for
hard
sure.
practice, like it was challenging, but I really enjoyed the challenge of doing the thing physically. I just think that season of life when you saw me performing, 2009, for example, 2009 was a bad year for me personally, looking back. And a lot of that winter season was just dragging myself to the practice area that I had on my college campus and forcing myself to go through the motions. And I didn't get that solo done until we were in Daytona that year and a couple nights before. And so I look back and I was like, wow, those were some really challenging times. I don't know that I navigated them gracefully, and I don't know that I would certainly not encourage anyone go through the kind of experiences that I did. I feel very fortunate that I got professional support and help when I most needed it, towards the end of that season of life for me. But I would say that entire time was very challenging, in terms of continuing to be involved and also struggling through life.
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you, sister. And I'll tell you, when I had a year gap in between high school and the military, I told my parents, hey, I was like, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to leave for the military. And they're like, what? No, just take some time and think about it. And my mom coerced me and she was like, no, just stay, please. And I was like, oh, fine. And then I was like, nope, sorry, I got to go. But in that year, it took me through such a loop because drill takes so much of you. And it's like a therapy in a sense. It's almost like when some guys, they go to the gym, they just crank out all that weight and they leave and then they feel a million times better. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm also shocked that a performance was done in the same weekend as Worlds at the time. So that is an awesome fact. I don't know how many people know about that, but that is awesome. And I wonder how many people are going to go back to that video.
You can probably find the prelims solo from that year, and if you happen to find it, it's not the same as the finals one. It fell flat in the preliminary round, and I was like, this is like, so a lot of the stuff that I guess would be considered to be the highlight of that 2009 video, was mostly just thrown out there and again, with all of this, I think I would never recommend anyone follow in my footsteps in that regard. I think the one thing that I've learned is drill is not a replacement for therapy, and it's not a replacement for seeking out advice and counsel from qualified sources. I would not encourage anyone to wing their solo, in the final moments of the season like that. That's kind of how it evolved and kind of how it came together that way. I would not recommend anyone walk those same footsteps, looking back. And I think that, there was a time when I was in high school and I had a competition for the indoor drum line at the same time I had a competition for the high school drill team. And I could have just as easily chosen the drum line. My junior RTC instructor was obviously like, Matt, we need you over here. And the drum line was like, hey, Matt, buddy, like, we need you over here. Would you come do this? And I was very fortunate enough now looking back that the adults in my life just made me choose. But I could have chosen, to go the opposite direction and wound up somewhere completely different. A lot of that journey through the time that people see on the videos as a soloist, I probably would not advise and guide anyone attempt to follow in that way. I don't know, looking back, that I wouldn't have told younger Matt to go make some friends that he didn't know instead of get on the internet and talk about drill with the people on the internet. Maybe life would be different, and I don't say that to not seem grateful for how life is now. Talk about struggling and challenging times. It's probably not one of those things I would advise anyone to replicate.
And speaking of 2009 and it being such a pivotal point, if no one's ever seen it, go check out Matt Wendling's final solos or his prelims solo, because apparently it's different. But what would you say is your most memorable competition performance?
That's a challenging one. I think the answer, and this sounds like a cheeseball answer, as a performer, as a practitioner of drill myself, I think the most memorable one is the only solo that I did my senior year, and it was at regional level drill meet in Ohio. It was behind the bleachers of an auxiliary gymnasium, so like off tucked away, and people had to sit on the one row of bleachers they had pulled out in that back area. I remember that one probably more than any of the college ones. It felt like a very powerful time because, it was the first time I'd ever performed a solo in front of other people. I'd been grinding on it for 2.5, 3 years at that point, and I'd never actually done it for anyone. And it was the first time I had gotten out in front of people and that I'd really experienced being able to, as a performer, reach out and have that impact and have that thing that you want as a performer, which is to dialogue with your audience, that you feel like their energy is feeding into you and that you are giving your energy to them. And it's this reciprocal kind of a whirlwind. I think that was a really powerful experience. On the educational front, working with so many amazing programs throughout the years, I don't think I could put a finger on my favorite performance. But if I had to choose an extremely memorable one, the last couple of years that we were truly coaching a team, watching the final performances for the color guard teams was a really powerful thing. The effort and
Okay.
the work come together in terms of becoming a seasoned performer like that. I think that one's, those last couple of color guard performances really stand out to me as being memorable from a coaching perspective.
It's underrated. Some people truly don't understand the beauty and the timing
favorite
that color
event.
guard has to
My
be.
favorite event.
Because, yeah, and I think people undermine it sometimes because you transition from this large group in a completely separate team of 4 guys, and you have to keep perfect line, perfect dress, interval, everything. And you have 4 judges sharking around you, and it's not like they have a huge space. So they almost have no choice but to stare at you. Color guard is by far one of my personal favorites too. Just the time, the effort, and the finesse that comes along
No,
with
and,
it.
and I think we've obviously talked a lot about my involvement in history in the solo thing, but I think it's important for people listening to remember or to recall a time when it wasn't a thing to do to be a soloist. The only reason we started to do all this solo craziness in college was because we were all craving the wanting to be part of a team again, and there just wasn't an avenue for that unless you were going to go, college and do ROTC and do the collegiate drill team experience, which at the time, social media not being what it is today, you didn't really know what your options were coming out of high school. It used to be that the solo spots
Right.
were reserved for the people on the team. I remember watching the old videos that used to be out there, and there was an instructor that was talking one time, and the quote that really stuck with me was basically him explaining how he had no idea how talented his students were until he peeks around the corner at lunchtime and sees them out there, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, this kid is incredible." And I took that to heart because it wasn't supposed to be something that was out in front of everyone. It was supposed to be the way that you personally continued to express your passion for the craft. And the practice of doing solo was mostly about, extending your own involvement on drill team. There's not such thing as a professional driller unless you're going to go do the service drill team thing. It's not a job that somebody can have. It's something that none of us aspired, I think, to do it. We just did it because it was the only way to get back to that sense of community or that sense of team that maybe, we were missing from our time in high school. And so you fall in love with color guard because you realize that color guard is one of the pinnacles of the expressions of competitive drill at the high school level. Like you were saying, the demand that it has on a limited number of students that are out there, the intimate kind of venue with the judges being so up close to what's going on becomes this really amazing thing. And I agree with you. I do think people overlook some of those things because it doesn't have the flash maybe that specifically armed solo exhibition drill tends to have.
What do you think are some mistakes that you see young drillers make today that you think it's kind of it's repetitive? It's like every year, every season, you see these same kids where they fall into this, maybe this motion of it's almost like time repeats itself. Have you ever seen anything
I
like
think
that?
something very tangible that I think we've lost sight of is that at the end of the day, the rifle is a tool by which you express something that is larger than the drill and the choreography itself. I think that today there is a tendency to treat drill or to reduce drill down to what physical acts can I do with my rifle and what motions or tricks or skill sets can I complete, and that is drill. And I think that one of the things, especially younger drillers, maybe lose sight of is that the reason that you want to increase your vocabulary and the reason you want to unlock more and more skill sets is so that you have more colors to paint from when you go to paint your masterpiece. You have more words from the dictionary in your vocabulary that you can use to write your novel. And that drill is a medium of expression. It's not necessarily the act that's important or that is the core of it. It's using the physical elements to say something greater than just the combination of moves that you're doing on the floor. And I think when you think about it that way, and you think about movements as tools and styles as tools and approaches as tools, ultimately what you wind up with is a much more meaningful interaction with the creative process. And it becomes less of, let me look at a score sheet that people who are evaluating me may or may not understand what they're looking at or what they're trying to evaluate. And it becomes more about, what am I trying to communicate to my audience through the movements that I decide to include, through the choreography that I design? What am I trying to do? And then, the sport element of what we do is, to what level of excellence can I do it? And I think that if we lose sight of those things, it can very quickly become a contest about who can do the same skills at a higher level and hopefully not drop. And I think it becomes kind of vapid. It becomes kind of physical. And we warn the students all the time, if we reduce this thing to just what you can physically do, the end result is going to be that it favors more physically developed, likely male participants, and at the exclusion of people who could participate and would really gain from it, but maybe aren't hitting the same physical development markers as fast as their peers. Or maybe, we'll wind up being excluded because they can't do X, Y, and Z move, and they won't, we really want to put that in the routine. But if you can't do that move, I guess you can't be on the team. And it's like, what, if we reduce it to that, it becomes kind of this really negative, sort of empty thing. So I think if drillers who are aspiring to improve in their craft would start to see drill as a medium of expression that they're trying to do to the best of their ability, then I think we'd see a lot of the things that are kind of symptoms, the routines that all feel the same, or, the tricks getting old and everyone doing, 12 variations of the same thing year over year. I think a lot of those symptoms would disappear and they would kind of be addressed in that.
Exactly. I love that expression. They're adding more paint and being able to just draw on that canvas. My expression to my boys, it's you got to learn how to dance. This is a dance here, and this isn't a 1.5 minute song, 2 minute song. This is an 8 minute song that you need to learn, that you need to understand, and it's tiring, it's exhausting, it's going to push you. And if you can learn how to dance, if you can find that rhythm, it breeds this thing of something where everybody's like, oh my God, that wasn't just drill. That was art. That was a masterpiece. And I'm glad you painted it that way, because that is such an awesome way to put it. I'm going to turn that into a soundbite here later.
Oh, goodness. Well, and you mentioned something, you liken it to dance, and it is dance. And the only thing that separates it from dance or marching band or cheer or any of these other physical, athletic, performing arts, right? Yeah, people get in the debate of, is drill a sport, is drill not a sport? And I think the amazing thing about drill is that it's an athletic performing art, which means that we get to draw on the best of sports and we get to draw on the best of arts. And if we put it in one box or the other, we lose the opportunity to find the value in those things. And it's got this shared heritage, but it's really about the body. At the end of the day, the rifle only moves because the body tells it to move. And if it's really about the kinesthetic awareness of your body, it's really about your brain, because the brain controls the body. And going back to your question about, what's a mistake that younger drillers maybe tend to make is they, I think if they thought about it more like you just said, which it's something you're doing with your body, it's not something that the rifle is doing. The rifle is only moving because of your body, that their fundamentals and their execution, their achievement level, and what they create would all come up, because at the end of the day, it's your body that's doing the act of drilling. It's not the rifle that's doing the act of drilling. It's your body. So I think that's a beautiful way to put it. I love that.
I appreciate you, man. So since we got your kids, you're getting them to dance, you're getting them to understand what it takes to be a team, right? So if you had to build a championship team from scratch, what would that first priority be? What would you say, hey, before we can start to dance, we're going to touch this first? What would that first priority be?
This is an easy one. And I've been a little bit long-winded on some of these other ones, but I won't be on this one. The number one priority we would have when we're building a drill team from the ground up is prioritizing cultivating an environment that is joy-filled, that is positive, that is uplifting. The thing that we would focus on first is the environment of the team, the culture of the team, in so much as this is what it feels like to be a part of this team. I think everything else, skills-wise, everything else, logistics-wise, everything flows forth from an environment where the student feels safe, where the student feels free to express themselves and put themselves out there and become vulnerable. And to do that, you have to cultivate an amazing environment. That would be the number one priority, bar none. There's nothing, if they accomplish nothing else but that is in and of itself a worthy goal.
That's the kind of environment that I love to give to my boys. They may disagree if you ask them, but I try my absolute hardest. I want to teach them to be that competitive spirit. I want them to be able to look at this as a sport and be competitive, but I also want them to be able to have fun, enjoy themselves, be able to be free. Like, I mean, just being prior Marine Corps, but I'm naturally loud and intense. And I don't want them to think that they can't approach me with anything, with that they can't talk to me about, maybe they need some advice from somewhere. Maybe they have something going on in their personal lives that maybe they can't talk to their parents and they need a point of view. So I 100% agree that it is that environment that is so important to get that championship team ready. And when you got your team and when you got your people together and it starts to make a community, right? And for you, what does the drill community need to grow and to gain more recognition? This is kind of a small thing, but what do you think it needs to do to get bigger, more recognized?
Oh, goodness. I think the first question is recognized by whom? Who needs to recognize it? And why does that particular stakeholder need to recognize it? And we see hundreds of programs, thousands of students nationwide, worldwide at this point. We've been very blessed. And I think we have a wide swath of data points across the country. And, it's so funny you mentioned the competition thing. For the schools, not even whether they're competitive or not, but whether their drill team is known to be a positive place for the student body in the right places with the key stakeholders in the community at the community level, I think drill team is getting an incredible amount of recognition nationwide. If the question is, like you said in your first podcast, why hasn't ESPN subsidiary picked up on what's going on? I have kind of a hot take on this. The first one is I don't know that we want that.
Okay.
If you're familiar with any of the docuseries, and I think Cheer is the one that got the most notoriety, I think drill, insofar as we're talking about also soloists and also grown folks still running around and doing rifle go spin stuff, and if we're including that in the what's going to get the recognition, I think there's a long way to go before anyone should feel comfortable wanting to put the activity in that kind of a spotlight. I think because it's small and because most drillers tend not to know anything besides drill, they don't tend to be involved. I mean, if you think about the average junior RTC student that winds up on the drill team, if they were going to be a sports kid, sports would have got him earlier. Theater would have got him earlier. Band would have got him earlier. You know what I mean? So a lot of these people that wind up doing this are only familiar with the way things are in drill team land. And because we don't have that communication with these other like activities, think that there are a lot of safeguards that need to be put in place before anyone should feel comfortable trying to shine a spotlight on drill team. I think there's a lot of amazing things happening at the student level, at the instructor level, at the programmatic level. But let's not forget that we just came out of a massive congressional hearing that shook up every single junior ROTC branch and literally allocated what's probably to the tune of millions of dollars in reorienting how they have their accountability measures set up within their services. I don't know that we're at a place where we're mature enough to want to shine the spotlight that way on the activity, or we're not prepared for the hard things that would come up as a result of that. In terms of, that's my first hot take. Not that it's not a worthy cause, not that the students should not be platformed to the moon and back, because they should. They're doing something that's incredible. I think the other piece of the puzzle that is a barrier to drill getting the recognition, and those students deserve to be on ESPN just as much as any of the other students that they showcase, right? Right. That's not in contest for me. But I do feel like the challenge that drill team will have, and if you listen to the conversations people have had over the years and the things that people will say, they're like, well, the first barrier is we need to remove the military from it because it's just only going to be so popular because the military is directly attached to it. And a lot of the times, I think this question is really a proxy for why isn't exhibition drill getting more recognition? Specifically, why isn't armed exhibition drill getting more recognition. And I think that in order to get more recognition, if you really wanted to showcase what's happening, you'd showcase what's also happening in regulation. And you'd showcase what's happening in color guard, and you'd showcase what's happening in inspection, and you'd showcase the unarmed events. I think a lot of times people are like,
Yes.
what they really are asking, and I'm not saying you're asking this, but I think a lot of times what people who don't have a drill team background are really asking is, why isn't the rifle spinning getting more attention? And my answer to that is, it cost Drum Corps International way too much money to get the world championships on ESPN. Nobody was happy with how they portrayed it and what they had to cut it down to fit the airtime that they could afford on ESPN. And though it may have had marginal popularity amongst the general population, the people who were watching were already, enfranchised fans or participants in professional level marching band. And so I think drill has that hurdle where the military element of it is never going to be able to be removed. I think that's probably never going to happen. I think that's one of the huge barriers that we would need to overcome to get drill and those students the recognition it deserves. And that may be kind of a hot take, but at the end of the day, it's gonna require people that have a vision beyond one part of it.
Consider me completely ignorant to all that. And it's good to know, because I'm sure there are other people out there where it's like, why isn't this as big as it should be? And some needed an answer. And is it the official answer? No, don't notarize that and send it to the government. It's definitely something where I think people have kind of speculated, and I always have. So I was always curious about it. We kind of talked about this before. Now that we're kind of stepping out of the limelight, drill as a soloist has slowed down, what are some things that you hope people will remember about you?
My goodness. I was thinking about this question. This might be the most challenging one. I think I'll close it with a story, and that story is the first quote-unquote post-high school driller I ever met after I had graduated. I told you I got the 2002 VHS tape, and on that tape was the soloist from McKinley High School, McHugh-McCoy, and he won that year. And of course, I'm a diehard Hawaii drill, Kingsguard, original fanboy. And when I went down to the Sports Network National High School Drill Team Championships, the newly minted World Drill Championships, I was down there and I got to walk around. And this is, thinking about my senior year, I had met McHugh-McCoy, and I was starstruck because it's like, here's the guy I've been watching on a VHS tape for 3 years, standing right in front of me. And I must have stammered out something stupid about how much I loved his drill, and I was just totally starstruck and dumb about it. This is back in the day of MySpace. So I go home and I post on MySpace kind of a recap of going down to Daytona and doing the whole thing. And one of the things that I mentioned was, I can't believe I felt so stupid meeting one of my drill heroes and not having anything to say and just kind of being a blabbering idiot. Well, he must have seen that post, because the next year, which was 2007, when I went down there for the first time, graduated to do the Worlds thing, he made a point to come and find me. And I was blown away, because here's this guy that's larger than life to me, who's clearly so talented in the art of exhibition drill that I had looked up to. And we talked about nothing drill related. We talked about local politics and the weather, and he gave me his National Guard crest. And it was this amazing interaction. That was the first time I realized that drill is just something that people do. Maybe they're very passionate about it. It's not who they are, and it doesn't have to be who they are. It's just something that they are passionate about and they're really good about. And I've tried and failed, and tried and failed. There's so much hurt and trauma, I think, for everyone who's been involved in this activity for long enough. But I hope that the thing, when I meet someone new, when we work with students today, throughout all my years in college, when I would meet someone, I hope that I seemed like a person who was more than just a guy who spins a gun. And I've always tried to pay it forward for how he interacted with me and how he completely humanized our interaction. He put me at ease. He made it more about making sure I was comfortable, making sure that he knew I had felt bad about that interaction, that he wanted to come up and give it another go around. So I hope that the same way that impacted me, that there are people out there, hopefully, who have been impacted in that same way. I guess
it has been an awesome experience being able to talk to you. And just as you felt, I feel the same way at the beginning. It's like, oh my God, this guy is such an influence in the drill world. I don't want to sound ridiculous in front of this guy. And it is awesome that you've left such an imprint on this world, and just to be able to have you for a few minutes of your time. And Matt, I can't appreciate you anymore. And I want you to take the floor, and if you could please close us out here.
Absolutely. Well, before I do that, I want to say thank you for having me, and thank you for thinking so highly of me that you'd invite me to do this. It's a great service what you're doing, not just with this, but with giving back and coaching and so on and so forth. And I hope we can stay connected going forward out of this. Whatever we can do to support you, just let us know, and we want to be there for you. So to close it out, and I love what you have here. And I'd asked you, hey, do you mind if I riff on this just a little bit to kind of help it fit sort of the take that we have on the drill team activities. So without further ado, let's close this thing out. Most people will never understand what it takes. The hours, the sacrifices, the bruises, the failures, all for a few minutes on the drill deck. This is a world where you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the highest level of your preparation. A world of intense formations, razor-sharp movements, and thrilling tosses that leave crowds speechless. The difference between a winner and a winner may practice until they earn a trophy, and still ultimately walk away unfulfilled. But a champion relentlessly pursues their craft until they understand it so thoroughly that there is no validation left for them but to share what they've discovered with others. And yet, despite the talent, dedication, passion, drill team remains one of the most overlooked competitive activities in the nation. That changes here. That changes with you, Edward. This is where the stories are told. This is where the legends are remembered, and this is where the future of drill is built. I'm Matt Wendling. Welcome to the Drill Pad, the voice of the drill community and the home of champions.
Yes, that is awesome. Matt, I appreciate you again so much. I will be sure that maybe once the season starts back up and going, maybe once some videos get out there, we talk about some local competitions and areas, maybe we can get some different schedules and maybe review and touch back. But is there any final remarks you have? Any last shout outs you got?
So blessed by the Lord to do what we do and to give back in the way that we give back. Could not continue to do this without obviously the support of my wife and our entire team here at Drill Team Dynamics. If you're interested in growing your drill team, and if you're an instructor wanting to know how to leverage your team to create even stronger leaders, or you are a current commander on your team, or you're a drill teamer working their way up, we try to provide numerous outlets and numerous resources for you to help you out in that journey. So make sure that you check us out on all the various social media platforms, YouTube and Instagram. We're on TikTok now. It's Drill Team Dynamics on all those platforms. And if there's anyone out there that has questions or, anything that we can do to help, you can reach us through any of those means, and we'd be more than happy to try to point you in the right direction. And if we can't, to find someone who can help you
Thanks
out.
again, Matt. And once again, for everybody else that's listening, for future podcasts, please, if you have questions, emails, concerns, if you want to be able to interview, or if you want to hear some of these other post drillers answer some of these questions, please send me an email, th3drillpad@gmail.com. I appreciate you all, and I'll make sure to hear from you all soon. Take care.